Really, what I'm talking about today with my friend Max Green, customer success at Support Logic, is we are talking about support data analytics, making that impactful strategic change in your support organization. As we get started, something I want to explain about is that we are doing contest. We have 4 GIFs that are hidden through the presentation. And if you name the GIF as it comes up on the screen, we'll give you a gift card. And this week, all of our gifts are based around 80s movies. So we have a little bit of a theme going on for this. So we can dive in. Really, where we're starting with is context, right? Like when we think of typical proactive support, we think of companies like Support Logic and some of our competitors that are building AI to help companies really handle support faster, to take care of those high cost items, and using AI to extract the voice of the customer and really take care of these things on a day-to-day basis. Max, when you talk to customers, this is a lot of what they're doing, right?
Yeah, this is definitely part of why they've set up Support Logic and implemented Support Logic. But even just companies in general, it's always about how do we get ahead of these things so that we're not constantly firefighting, right? How do we proactively get ahead of escalations, reduce our backlog, make sure that we're getting to the right cases at the right time, right? And AI tools in general help enable you to based on the extraction of signals, which is what we do, right? Enable you to highlight kind of in real time that something is happening on a case that needs your attention, right? That reprioritization is something that may need to happen. However, it could be argued that that's actually still reactive. It's just faster than it's faster than how you would spot these at-risk cases or these cases in needs of attention otherwise, right? Mm-hmm. Typically, you might be reading through all of the cases to try and find these. And with Support Logic and other AI tools, you're getting notified. And so you're not having to read through all the cases to track these down. You're just a smaller number of cases are being highlighted to you, and you can then and then you can take action on those where applicable. But it's still to some extent reactive because you're reacting to a signal that was detected, as opposed to preventing that signal altogether, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, that's a great point. So we've got our first GIF of the webinar. I'm looking at the chat to see if someone knows what it's from. Nelson's got it. Bill and Ted, great job.
There we go.
Nice. A few guesses. All right. Well, Nelson got that first one, but don't worry, there's 3 more. So stay on it. All right. So really, this is what you're talking about is like these one-to-one enhancements, and they're amazing enhancements, being able to, tamper down an escalation or, jump into the most important cases in a backlog or reassign a case. It really is this one-to-one solution. It's not the bigger picture. It's not really changing your strategy, right? If you're a support organization and from a strategic point of view, you're trying to figure out what are we, right? What are we going to be? What do we aspire to be? You probably aspire to not be any of these things on this page. That really can't happen with these one-to-one solutions.
Yeah,
Max, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. Right, and when we're talking about one-to-one solutions, we're talking about being proactive, say on individual scenarios and cases. Right, we're talking about trying to improve the outcome on one case based on the tactical and real-time insights that we might be getting, right? That helps us get to those sooner because since we're not having to go through all cases to find them, ideally we're not firefighting on so many cases, right? Because we're getting ahead of some of these things, not all of them obviously, but some of them before they happen. But how can you leverage those insights even more proactively to get ahead of these issues even further? That's really what the key focus is here.
Yeah, exactly right. That's kind of our reason for being, right? Is what is that true proactive strategic support experience? What's the thing that how can you make these changes that are long lasting, right? That have ramifications beyond the week. Um, and and you have such an incredible hypothesis with this that it's this intersection.
Yeah. So to touch on this a little bit, right? Like when we're talking about the data that we say have access to as a support organization, we typically talk about we talk about structured data as well as unstructured data, right? Structured data is what support organizations have always leveraged heavily, and a lot of that is just the think of it as the metadata that exists on cases, such as like, okay, here's when the case creation time, who's the case assigned to, who's the customer, what product is this customer opening this case about, how many conversations are going back on the forth on the case, what is the case age, what's the region of support. These are all metadata factors in a sense that are very easily understood and captured on cases because they're often, say, submitted as part of when a case is opened, right? If a customer is submitting a case on a portal, maybe they're filling out some of these fields, right? So, and when a case gets assigned to an individual or the priority is designated, that's a lot of what we would call metadata, right? But then support logic, one of our key focuses, obviously, is the extraction of signals, right? And the signals we extract predominantly from the unstructured data of the case. The unstructured data being the communication, the comments, the written text, the true voice of the customer, so to speak. And what I find really interesting is that when you look at that data holistically, when you look at the intersection between that unstructured data and the metadata that exists and that you're already tracking within your ticketing system about these cases, it allows you to develop a picture of case drivers as well as for example, like how are these signals clustering around different types of cases. So when we think in terms of signals here, and you can see some of them up on the screen, like frustration, confusion, customer making a call request or asking for an update, which we would refer to as a follow-up request, and lots of others that we detect, positive signals as well, right? Not even just the negative stuff that we're showing you on this slide, right? As well as likely to escalate, which is, predicting escalations is one of support logic's key value propositions, right? But understanding when you intersect any of these signals and see how they cluster around certain types of metadata, it allows you to see, okay, right, what's actually driving these? And are there changes that I can potentially make in the way that I run my business that could prevent these signals from happening altogether? And we'll talk about a couple distinct scenarios about this, but think of it as the opportunity to truly become proactive, right? When you take an action on an individual case based on one of these signals, it allows you to drive potentially an improved outcome for that particular case, right? However, when you look at how these signals cluster around your cases holistically, it allows you to consider, are there scenarios where we could make a process change that could prevent this type of signal from occurring at all, right?
Yep.
Or for example, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, right? Do certain signals cluster around particular product types that we offer or regions of support, right? Confusion, frustration, right? Maybe you have usability issues. We'll dive into all these scenarios in a little bit more of a detailed way. But what I really want you to think about here is how does the sentiment and the voice of the customer cluster around the different types of cases that your customers open with you? Because that gives you a chance to make strategic decisions that impact your business as a whole.
That's right. And I think a new development with support logic is now we're kind of handling multiple data sources, right? So if you've got two versions of Service Cloud and a poll that I want to launch right now, and if you go to the the poll tab up in the top right corner, you can answer is, I'm kind of interested in the viewers and how many different systems of record are you dealing with right now? Do you have part of your product base on a Freshdesk and another part on Service Cloud? Because when you're trying to make these strategic decisions, and when you're able to do something like this, where you've got automatic signals happening, because kind of get back to this and kind of show these things are being tagged automatically. So in the signal side, that's automatic. And of course, the metadata is automatic. So you're getting this real-time automatic happening on your cases on multiple systems of record, all coming into one place. And that's really going to let you do those strategic decisions. And then this slide, really what we're talking about here is showing that there's a company-wide benefit across there. So you can see with each one of these groups, you're getting a benefit from that data, from those analytics, all coming into one place. Your executives are able to make far-reaching strategic decisions, which is kind of what we've been talking about. But product can also get those areas of improvement. And one area I think that sometimes gets overlooked is that it's IT and the business's duty to make sure that the data that the company is bringing in every day is getting leveraged, right? I think that's a core tenet of IT and the CIO is, how are we using the data that we have? Well, with support systems like this is how that happens, is now you are leveraging that stuff that's coming in. So Max, I would love for you to take me through a number of scenarios that you're seeing with customers and how they are being strategic.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to briefly touch on what you were just looking at, if you just go back for a second, right? What we're really looking at here is distinct personas and how support analytics and data can be leveraged across those distinct personas, right? That's some of the scenarios we're going to talk about. But like when you think in terms of, Ryan talked about how the importance of IT and data, right? The importance of bringing this stuff to product and engineering so that they can make decisions about the products themselves, right? But also customer success and sales. Sales is an interesting one, and we'll talk about specific scenarios momentarily. But how does voice of the customer in support potentially help you create opportunities for upsell and cross-sell, right? That's one we'll get to momentarily. And as well, and also, a backbone of support is the creation of content, right? To ideally allow your customers to self-serve. So as your support teams are working with customers, right? Looking at certain types of signals and how they cluster around certain types of cases that your customers are opening with them, specifically signals like frustration and confusion, can create opportunity to give you an idea of maybe where content can be improved, right? So these are some of the things that you can do that will have a far-reaching impact on the business, above and beyond just driving an improved outcome, say on a single case. So it's about personas, and it's about where this data can be used to make all of their jobs better and make the customer's job better as a result. So
that's a great point. Let's go through this first scenario.
Yeah. So
first, we got another GIF. Oh, Jason's got this one. I love seeing a redemption story. When someone misses the first one and they're in on the second one, it's great to see. Jason's got that one. Okay, sorry. So let me click away on that, and we're
classic.
I love that movie so much. It's so weird.
It's so weird. Exactly. Weird in the way 80s was weird. And that's a good weird, definitely.
Yes. Do you know that stat about, I think he's only in the movie for like 20 minutes or something?
Yeah. That's wild. I did not know that. Wow. Yeah. So let's talk about this particular scenario, right? So escalation signals, right? Well, let's figure, what would we like to be able to accomplish here based on this in this scenario, right? So support logic highlights, things like a case might be likely to escalate, right? It highlights escalation requests, which is when a customer is specifically making the statement in the case that they would like you to escalate. that case, that they see the issue as critical and want it to be resolved as soon as possible, as well as obviously support logic also tracks that cases are actually already in an escalated state, which is something you're also tracking back in your system of record. But where this becomes interesting, right, is once again, when you look at where are these signals clustering around. For example, in this scenario, we're talking about features. And by features, we mean, say, product features within the product suite that you offer that your customers are opening tickets about, right? What are the product features that are causing the most escalations, right? What are the product features that your customers are making the most escalation requests on, or that support logic, for example, is predicting is likely to escalate, right? When you're acting on those signals in real time, once again, you can improve the outcome on maybe that particular case. Maybe you can prevent it from really blowing up, getting to an escalation in the first place. Maybe you choose to escalate based on the customer's request of an escalation. But when you look at the data aggregately and try to see, is it certain features of our product that are causing this, right? Are there certain teams, certain support teams? Maybe we have a team of support that might need some additional training or something of that nature to be able to service certain products better. Or even more importantly, one of the things I always like to highlight is that support engineers and agents, by and large, they don't always ask for help as soon as they should. They take pride in trying to resolve situations on their own, resolve cases on their own, right? But if we look at this, these signals and look at how they're clustering, say, even around individual agents, teams of agents, product features, right? We can then take a step back and say, okay, what can we do to prevent these escalations or prevent these signals of occurring at all, right? And we're not going to prevent them from occurring altogether, but maybe after we've seen this data aggregately, we go and we institute a new training program on certain product features for our tier 1 agents or engineers, right? Or we look to get more SMEs involved sooner in cases than we would otherwise, right? These are decisions you can make about the business when you look at this data aggregately and retrospectively, right? Taking you beyond just taking action in real time on the case to make that one case better, right? This allows you to get ahead of it even further.
You've really got to have that combo. You've got to have the ability to take action on a single case, but you've got to be able to to be able to see the big picture, right? You've got to have the analytics. I think that's an important
part. As a post-mortem in a sense, right? You do a post-mortem not just on one case, but on cases aggregately, right? And that way you can make decisions about, for these types of cases, what's missing? What's missing to handle these sooner?
That's right. That's right. This next scenario, and I apologize to the viewers, I cut out scenario 2, so we don't have a scenario 2, but we're going to move on to scenario 3. The renumbering is on me. Yeah.
So confusion is actually one of my favorite signals that support logic detects, right? Because it creates so many distinct opportunities, right? So let's start with what is a confusion signal. Sounds pretty straightforward. And for the most part, it is, but the drivers of it can be very, very different, right? So the customer opens a case with you and maybe a couple different ways we can look at this, right? Does the product have a usability issue where it's not intuitive in certain aspects of it and how your customers might use it, right? Is the response that your agent or engineer provided to the customer not clear, and therefore they're confused as to what to do in that moment to resolve the issue that they're having, right? Or in looking and searching through your documentation, maybe your documentation isn't clear, and that's why the customer opened the case. They were confused by the documentation on how to do something in the product, right? These confusion signals, like the escalation signals we just talked about, like all the other signals, we're highlighting them in real time. But when you look at retrospectively how they cluster, say, around, once again, maybe you have a certain region of support, right, that's generating a lot of confusion signals. Maybe you have particular product features that are generating lots of confusion signals. There's two different distinct opportunities here, right? If it's the product and the features that maybe are generating these confusion signals, look at them aggregately and then take them back to your product and engineering team. And it's once again the intersection of the unstructured data and the signal detected on the unstructured data, which is that confusion. And it's the intersection of that with the information you know about the case based on its metadata, right? The customer opened the case, they designated that it was this particular feature, right? That is causing them, that's causing them the issue, right? And so then you know that there's this many cases for this feature that had this many confusion signals, which is a lot more than maybe you're seeing on your other features for your product. And so take that back to product and engineering, and it creates the opportunity for you to go armed with data to the your engineering and product teams. When you go armed with data, then they can make data-informed decisions, right? Which can benefit your business in such a way that, if they make updates or changes to improve usability, make the product more intuitive, that means less cases are opened because of the product being that way. So that's something you can only do when you look at this retrospectively, when you analyze this the signal data and the metadata together. And once you have a substantial amount of it, which when you're detecting voice of the customer, when you're looking at it on the unstructured data, this actually builds up very, very quickly, right? So a lot of opportunity there to make decisions that impact your business in a holistic way.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
So with scenario 4, and before we get into it, we've got another one of our GIFs. We've got our third GIF out of 4. Jerry's got it.
What is
big.
This? Oh, it's big.
I was just at FAO Schwartz last week because I was visiting New York, and of course it's not the same as it used to be, but they did have the piano, and I didn't jump on it, and I kind of regret it. I wish I did. So Max, you're close by. Will you go jump on the keyboard for me?
You know what? I must say, in the 30 plus years I've lived in New York City, I've never jumped on the keyboard. So, and maybe that's just in the same way I haven't been to Times Square in 25 years for New Year's Eve either, right?
Yeah.
But as a non-New York native, you're welcome to do these things every time you come in.
Thanks.
Cool. So let's talk about this particular scenario, right? And this is an interesting one because this is something that actually one of our customers did do, and that we worked with them on, and that was only possible because of the once again that intersection between unstructured data and metadata, right? So what's a call request? It's pretty straightforward, right? A call request is a customer asking you for a call, right? And support logic highlights it as it's a sentiment. To us, it's an NLP signal, right? We detect the phrases and patterns of phrases that a customer uses when they're asking for a call, right? And those, what's interesting is when you look at those and you look at them, say, on the basis of the age of your cases, right? When in the case life cycle is the customer requesting a call? Are they doing it on the first day? Are they doing it on the second day? Are they doing it on the third day, right? The reality is they do it on most days, right? A customer may open a case, you respond to them, and the next response they send you is like, can we get on the phone and resolve this, right? You'll see that like throughout the life cycle of cases. But what one of our customers was actually able to determine was that they always saw a massive spike in call requests on day 4 of the case being opened, right? That increase was something sometimes as much as 120%, I think is what it was. So that was more than a doubling of the number of call requests that they're getting on cases. And so what they decided to do, which was really interesting, was they made a point of just offering calls a little bit earlier in the life cycle of the case, right? So on day 3, offer a call, right? Or just throw your throw your Zoom or Calendly link into your responses, right, to enable the customer to book time with you. You don't have to do it necessarily on the very first response that you do, right? But certainly do it before you get this influx of call requests. Because once the customer is asking for a call, and like I said, yeah, some are going to ask for it right at the beginning. But if your call requests are spiking on a certain day, then that's a day where customers are starting to get frustrated with progress, right? So offer the call a little bit earlier and head off that frustration, right? Because that may actually be the very next signal we detect, right? Is frustration from that point on. And we
That's
know
right.
actually that frustration as a signal actually correlates really well with poor CSAT. So that's something else we've seen, and we'll talk about that. I think we talk about that a little bit in another scenario. So yeah, offer a call earlier.
And it's funny because now, because calls take resources, but you're coming back to your team with this data informed decision of, we may dedicate more resources to calls, but we know exactly when to dedicate those resources, right? It's like, we're not just out of the blue deciding we're going to
Yes.
do it on day 3 or day 4. We've got this data that's telling us when to do it. I think for large organizations, especially, that's how these decisions have to be made. Otherwise,
Right.
you're just making random hypotheses. So,
It's a
yeah,
strategic, at that point, it's a strategic decision in a sense
yeah,
for your support organization, right? Because it's changing it's changing an actual process, and it's changing a process in such a way that is, one, potentially going to head off escalations. It's going to head off customers getting frustrated, and you're going to get less call requests if you're offering the call sooner, right? So you actually will see a dip in these types of signals as a result, right? And the less negative type signals you're getting, because let's be clear, a call request is, it's a customer is not requesting a call if they're happy.
yep,
So like every time you can head off and see these types of signals decline, which is only possible when you're looking at the combination of the unstructured data and the metadata, you're providing a better experience to your customers. And your CSAT, your NPS, it should reflect that as a result.
absolutely. So with this one, with support tiers and upsell opportunities, you've talked about this one in the past where you've got customers who clearly need more attention. They
Yes.
need to perhaps be into a higher tier, or you need to establish tiers, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, not all your customers are created equal, right? Like you have some that are substantially larger than others. You have some that open a lot more cases than others. You have some that, their relationship with you has grown over time, right? And so what we need to be able to look at is, are there opportunities to give that customer a better experience by selling them a higher tier of support or by selling them a premium support offering, right? This won't just improve the quality of their support, but it also helps with making support be less of a cost center and more an opportunity to protect and grow revenue, right? Customers that are receiving good support and are happy with your support, right? Support is the front line of your engagement with your customers. No one talks to your customers as much as support, right? So support has an outsized impact on their perception of you, right? Anyone who's called up their cell phone provider is well aware of this. So leverage these types of signals to help you understand, does this customer need better support? And if so, right, have a sales rep reach out to them, have the CSM talk to them, and just have the conversation around offering them a higher support tier.
And then with this last one, because not only are we detecting escalation signals, negative signals, confusion signals, but there are positive signals too, and there's real opportunity in those, right?
Yes. Yeah, positive signals are often overlooked. We often think about just the negative as we look to improve outcomes on cases and make changes and do all of these things, right? But positive signals serve multiple purposes. One, they give you the opportunity to praise your support teams for good work that they're doing, right? But in addition to that, like if a customer is having a positive experience, with the support they're receiving for one of your products, right? Maybe it creates the opportunity to look at other products that have synergies with the ones that that customer currently has, that they're currently leveraging of yours, right? And reach out once again to the account manager or sales rep who works the account as well, and maybe it's an opportunity to sell that customer on additional products that you have, right? Leverage the power of a good support experience to uncover opportunities with your customers. And then, a little bit more, right? One more thing there. If you go back, right? The other thing there is, given that support is the front line of your engagement with your customers, right? When you're seeing a lot of positive signals, maybe it's an opportunity to reach out to that customer and ask them if they'd be willing to do a case study with you, right? Or even say something like leaving a G2 review or for you, anything that gets the name out there even further for your organization, especially when it comes to the quality of support that you're providing. So all these things are ways that you can leverage these signals when you look at them at scale and you look at them across your business.
I love that. I'm going to stop sharing, and if you want to show us some stuff in the product, it'd be really cool.
So for our purposes, let's just take a quick look at some of the distinct types of signals that support logic highlights for you. And for those of you who aren't familiar, this is actually a support logic demo environment, right? And one of the analytics in the analytics pages that we offer, you'll see support logic detects all kinds of unique signals on your cases based on the unstructured data, right? Frustration, which is one of the ones I was talking about. We've seen across our customer base that frustration in particular has a very strong correlation with negative CSAT surveys, right? And so looking at the frustration signal and how it clusters around certain types of cases, right, around that metadata, can give you the opportunity, right, to make changes in your business or improve upon your products such that you can prevent those types of signals from appearing as much in the future. That then means you get better CSAT surveys, right? You get more promoters, all of that kind of thing. Frustration is just one of the signals we detect. Obviously, we detect things like urgency. We have a generalized bucket for negative signals as well. Customers saying they have a critical issue, requesting an escalation, things like making a statement that suggests the customer might be at risk of churn. We highlight all these distinct signals. And how do you then take that information and use it in the way that we've been talking about so far, right? You have to look at the metadata itself of the cases. So when doing that, within support logic, for example, I have the option here, and I'm just going to kind of show it, to actually take an export of this data and basically look at how it clusters around any of, say, for example, the custom fields that we are injecting into support logic. You'll see we have things here like product, category, severity, case type, region, support level, as well as obviously we have the customer name, we have the engineer who's working the case. When you look at this data and you look at the unstructured signals and you look at how those cluster around all these different factors that I'm talking about here, you may then be able to see that, okay, right, when I look at all of the cases that are included under frustration, I may see that they're all from a specific product type, right? I may see that they're all from a specific region of my support or even individual engineer. Helps you find training opportunities, helps you find data that you can take back to your product team to let them know that a particular feature is causing all this frustration or is causing confusion, right? As well as, if we were looking, say, at the call requests that I was talking about, you can look at how they cluster around the difference between case created date and the current the current time in the case, right? Allows you to quickly determine where are those happening in the case life cycle. And so it's these types of things that allow you to take this information back and look at how it's impacting your business and making proactive changes, true proactive changes that ideally prevent these types of situations and signals from being detected in the first place. So you move beyond just improving the outcome on a single case, and you proactively improve the outcomes on all your cases, and ideally deflect some of these cases from occurring in the first place. And that's the beauty of looking at the intersection of unstructured data, signals, and metadata of the cases itself, which is what most support organizations have looked at in the past.
That's awesome. Thanks for that demo. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, and we're going to jump into the final GIF of the presentation. And see if anybody knows it. One of my favorite movies as a kid. Oh, there we go. Chris has it. Last Crusade. I just saw the new Indiana Jones on the plane, and I kind of liked it. And then Max had me describe the storyline to him, and now I don't like the movie as much.
Because they retcon the entire history.
I told my wife that. She thought that was funny. As I had to explain what was going on, it was like, maybe it was just fine. Maybe it wasn't great. Anyway, so this is really, our reason for being on this is understanding trends at scale to make decisions that impact business at scale, right? And what's cool about that is that we've got some customers that are really seeing benefits from this, right? It's this extra layer of proactive support and of strategic decisions that is causing a lot of these statistics that you see here across Salesforce and Fivetran and stuff like that. Max, do you have any thoughts on this slide?
Yeah, I mean, these customers have really leveraged support logic above and beyond just for the tactical, but also for the strategic, right?
Yeah.
Salesforce here, as we can see, yes, they cut their escalation rate dramatically, and they gave all this time back to support managers, but they've heavily leveraged analysis of the signals at scale to make improvements across their business as a whole. Right. And this is something we propose to all of our customers, that they leverage the data in this way, because the insights that you can unlock there are kind of unbelievable when it really comes down to it. And they can impact all of those different personas in your organization in varying ways, and just improve the quality of service and products that you offer your customers. So really cool what you can do with this stuff.
Absolutely. As a closing point, Max, thanks for joining me on this call. I loved all your insights on the support analytics, and I wanted to invite the viewers to join us on November 30th. We've got Krishna Raja, our CEO, joining Nick Mehta, the CEO of Gainsight. They're really going to be talking about how they're breaking down data silos. They're going to be talking about the theme from the last TSIA Envision conference that happened in Las Vegas, and how support and success are using data to come together, be more proactive, heavily affect customer retention and upsell. And I'm excited for this one. And if you're interested in registering right now for it, if you go to the Docs tab in Goldcast and click the Aligning Support and Success, you can register a lot easier than you would if you followed my breadcrumbs here on the page that tell you to go to TSIA and then find the webinar that way. So I invite you to join us on November 30th. That's going to be an exciting one. And Max, thank you for helping me with this super informative topic.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining and listening to us.